This is Chapter 3, Section 2, Problem number 29. Scores of an IQ test have a bell-shaped distribution with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 12. Use the empirical rule to determine the following. What percentage of people has an IQ score of 88 and 112? Part B, what percentage of people have an IQ of less than 76 or greater than 124? What percentage of people has an IQ score greater than 136? Recall that if data have a distribution that is bell-shaped, the empirical rule can be used to determine the percentage of data that lie within k standard deviations from the mean. The empirical rule says that if the distribution is roughly bell-shaped, the following is true. Approximately 68% of the data fall within one deviation from the mean. So that would be the mean plus the standard deviation, or the mean minus one standard deviation. Approximately 95% of the data lie within two standard deviations of the mean. That would be the mean plus two deviations, or the mean minus two deviations. So you can find 95% of the data within two deviations of the mean. And 99.7% of the data lie within three deviations of the mean. That would be the mean plus three deviations here, or the mean minus three deviations here. So in this case here, they've drawn a bell-shaped curve on the right here. And the lines represent going down deviations from the mean. The one closest to the mean, mu, where it's 100. One line will be one deviation. Two lines will be two deviations over. And then three deviations over. Likewise, you can also subtract it. Subtract one deviation, subtract two deviations, or subtract three deviations. So let's look at the lines. The first one here, that's one line from the mean, one deviation from the mean. So the mean, that line here is going to be increased by one deviation. So you're going to have here a mean is 100 and the deviation is 12. So that would be 100 plus 12, which would be 112 here. See the question mark. So that would be 112. By the same token, you can say 100 minus one deviation, which would be 100 minus 12, which would be 88. So 68% of the data lies within one deviation from the mean. Splitting that in half, you got 34 below and 34 above. Now let's look at two deviations from the mean. One deviation, two deviations from the mean. So in this case here, we can increase the mean by two deviations. So it would be 100 plus two deviations of 2 times 12, or 100 minus two deviations of 2 times 12. So it'll be 100 plus 24, or 100 minus 24. So 100 plus two deviations would be 124, and 100 minus two deviations would be 76. And within two deviations of the data here, we're going to have 95% of the data. So how does that affect? How does it, in perspective, if one deviation here, that's 34, and that's 34, 68. So what it amounts to is adding 13.5% to each side. here in purple. So you can see here, 95 minus 68 is 27. So it added 27 total, which would be 13.5 on each side. So now let's finish labeling the graph. Okay, now we can look at lines that are 3 deviations from the mean. So what that's going to amount to is that you're going to look at the mean and add 3 times the standard deviation, 3 times 12, which is 36, or subtract 3 times 12 minus 36. So when you look at this result here, we see the mu plus 3 deviations, adding 3 times 12 will be 136. Subtracting 3 times 12 would be 64. Okay. And this, within 3 deviations, we're going to have 99.7% of the data. And the difference between the second 2 deviations and 3 deviations is going to be 4.7%. That's in the purple. Okay. So, since they're equivalent by symmetry, each side here there will be 2.35% of the data. So on this side is 2.35, and up here is 2.35% of the data. Finally, the leftover areas here, 99.7, that's 0.3% of the data. So that's beyond the 3 deviations, which is 0.3% of the data. So beyond that, it's going to be 0.15% on each side. Okay, so we have a complete chart here. So what percent of the data is between 88 and 112? So we can look at the chart here and see. It's a good idea to write this chart down in detail, just the way it is here. It's a good idea to do that. What percentage of people has an IQ score between 112 and 88? 34 and 34 is 68%. What percentage of the people have an IQ score less than 76 or greater than 124? So less than 76 is going to be, let's see here, 2.35% plus 1.5. And the same percent on the other side. So it's going to be 2 times that, which is just going to be 5%. So there's your 2.23 and 0.5. Then you have to double it, which comes to 5%. What percentage of people have an IQ score greater than 136? So you can see there's 136 there. And above 136 is 0.15%. Okay.